Hello and a good morning. What happened there? Anyway, good morning, good afternoon, and a very good evening to you, the good people of the tube. Hope you're all today. Hope you're all feeling grand. That's it now. I'm in hysterics. It's all gonna go wrong now. Anyway, people of the tube, hello there. Welcome to another vid. Today's vid, everybody, is about this. If you've been on this channel for a while, you've probably already seen me demoing this very amp. This is the one that I demoed last year in September, October time. And at that point, it wasn't mine. It was my friend Nicole. She brought it over from France. When her and my friend Marja came to visit me last year, she brought this over. This was hers. And she wanted, because she knew I was a Plexi nut, she brought it over for me to have a go on, and I fell in love with it. So when I went to France last year, I was playing on this, and eventually Nicole she wasn't getting along with it, and when she played through my CR120, she found her sound. So this was kind of like, not needed anymore. She didn't need it. So I happily and very, very quickly bought it off her, and I just love it. And hence the title of this video, my one and only valve amp. This will be the one. I'll probably own other valve amps, but this is the valve amp right here that I will have for the rest of my life. I have no desire to sell this amp. I have no desire to part with it. If I have to lose this amp, something's gone wrong. Same with these two. Same with like my MGs over there, stuff like that. If I have to, if this amp goes out of my possession, it's either been stolen or something's gone really wrong, and I'm just, I'm desperate basically. But hopefully, touch wood, that won't happen because I am in love with this amp. I've said it in videos before, people of tube, but I really love Marshall Plexis. They are, to me, not only the coolest looking amp ever made, bar none to me. I adore the way the Plexi looks. I don't know why. Aesthetically, I'm just drawn to it. I don't know why. I've just got such a connection with them, and it's really strange. The first time I saw a Plexi would have been, it'd be John Frusciante using his Marshall Major on top of the pops. And for some reason, it was the look that got me initially. Just the way they look is amazing. And to this day, they are the most gorgeous looking amplifier to me. Not to say that these oranges aren't gorgeous, not to say the custom isn't gorgeous, or, other amps that I've got aren't gorgeous. But there's something about the way a Plexi looks to me that just, it resonates on a very, very different level. And I don't know why, but I love it. I've always loved the way they look, and it goes beyond just my heroes using them. It feels more than that. It's not just the fact that John uses one. It's not the fact that Jimi Hendrix uses one or Mike McCready uses one. Rory Gallagher, he didn't use Plexi. He had a Marshall JMP, but it was the I believe it was the Mark II Plexi, or it was I've seen a Mark II Plexi him using that. I've also seen him using the Master Volume, which technically they're not Plexis, but they're not a million miles off, to be honest with you. Circuitry wise, different head boxes, different Tolex, different look, bigger logo, But this, to me, being a lucky git, being able to play through a lot of really old, late 60s Plexis, this is it. This is as close as I can get to owning a real vintage 60s Marshall Plexi, and I'll take it. It's absolutely quenched that desire for a Plexi. It really has. So that's what this video is about today. I will do some playing in a minute. I'm not going to do a great deal. And this video won't be massively long because, like I said, I've already demoed this thing and I've gone into the sounds it makes. But I just want to talk about why this is going to be my one and only valve amplifier that I'm just going to have forever. I'll be buying more solid state amplifiers. I'll be buying more stuff like that. But as for valve amplifiers, this is my valve amp for good. I'll probably try others. I really want to put this up against an orange OR15 to see which one I prefer out of the two. The OR15 I would say would definitely be more versatile than this, but I would like to know. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to try and get hold of an OR15, and at some point what we're going to do, people tube, is we're going to do a bit of a shootout between the OR15 and the Studio here. So I don't know if I even said what this is, but this is the Marshall Studio Classic. It's the Marshall Studio Plexi. There you go. That's what it is. I get mixed up between the vintage and the classic. I think the classic is this, and the I don't know. I think no, the classic is the 800, isn't it? And the vintage, I don't care. It's the Studio Plexi. That's what I'm going to call it. But like I say, I am a nut for Plexis. Not only the way they look, but the way they sound as well. And it wasn't until later on, when I actually got to play through some of our old Plexis at Old Hat, that I understood them. You know, well, actually, funny enough, the first Plexi I ever played through was my amp tech Gaz, who does all my amps for me. He's got a 1970, I think it's a 1971 Super Lead. And again, it's a brass panel one. You know, it's still, you know, it's pretty much the same circuitry as a Plexi. They're a little bit brighter than an actual Plexi panel Plexi, but it's still a Plexi in my opinion. You know what I mean? There's not much difference between them, to be honest with you. You know, anyway, I'm not going to go into that. But that was the first Plexi I played on, and it was just, I mean, I fell in love with his then and there. And then when I went to Old Hat, I tried loads of theirs out, and there was that Marshall Super Bass from 1968 in there that I played on pretty much every day. And that amp to me was just the benchmark of Plexis. It just sounded immense. You know, you got it to its sweet spot, and it just sounded immense. Not every day, and not every minute. Sometimes it would go, I'm amazing, and then you'd be playing on it. 5 minutes later, it'd sound like utter cack. Literally utter cack as well. But then it would come back and it'd sound amazing, and then it'd sound like cack again. And it was just erratic. But when it sounded good, oh my good gravy lords in heaven, it sound amazing. This one is a lot more stable. It has its off days. It does. And it's having one of them today, actually, to be honest with you. It still sounds immense, but it's not. In all fairness, it might sound better now. I've left it. It's been on now for about 2.5 hours. And what I normally do with valve amplifiers is I normally let them warm up for about 15 minutes before I actually play through them, because I want to make sure the valves are at kind of optimum kind of like, you know, conduction, if that's even the right word. It probably isn't, but I don't know about these things. So I let it warm up 15 minutes, and I was playing around and I was like, it feels a bit funny, it feels a bit spiky and a bit spongy, and it didn't feel like it normally felt. And then after a while, I came up with this loop that I'm going to play for you in a bit. Well, yeah, in a bit. And I was like, it's getting better. And I thought, well, what I'll do is I'll just leave it in standby. And then when I come back, I'll leave it for an hour and a bit. And I'll go off and do some other bits and pieces. And I'll come back and we'll see how it goes. So, when we get to playing, we'll see, people of the tube. But it always sounds good. It just feels weird sometimes. You know what I mean? Like, the Super Bass sounded like crap. And then sounded amazing. This one sounds really good but feels weird, and then sounds really good and feels great. It's kind of one of those two. I haven't experienced it going kind of totally weird yet, which is great, and it makes me very happy. But I just love them. They're so simple. They take pedals. You know, you can plug straight into them and get the most gorgeous clean tones. You can get that rock tone when you crank these things. Another reason why I love this particular model is you've got the low and high switch, and the set bias means that this thing starts to break up about 4. So about 11 o'clock on the volume dial, this thing starts to get into that gorgeous, gorgeous plexiness. Anything below that is pedal heaven. Pedals love plexis. That's one thing I always found is, to me, a plexi is just like the ultimate pedal amp. You know, if you keep the volume down and just get everything from your pedals, you can't go wrong with a super lead or a super bass. You really can't. And that's exactly what this thing does. It's loud, but it's not deafening. I'll probably never gig this thing. I highly doubt I'll ever use it for gigging. It's more of my home recording amp for when I want the Plexi thing. But you never know. I might take it on to a gig one day. It's definitely loud enough to do a gig, a small gig. A bigger gig, I think it would start to struggle because you won't have enough headroom. It would start to break up, and then it would affect all the pedals, and it would sound a bit kind of harsh and naff. So bear that in mind if you are thinking about one of these. I would say these are definitely more of a home messing around and recording amp than they are a live amp. But anyway, or even rehearsal and stuff like that. Anyway, but they're amazing. I love the way these things are biased. I love the way they're voiced. Marshall nailed it to me with these things. Well, they did with this one. I can imagine there's dogs out there. There always is. But I love this one. So when my friend Nicole said, do you want to buy it? I was like, yeah. Because I was going to get one anyway. But for all I know, the one I could have eventually bought might have not been as good as this one. So the fact I have this one, I'm very happy about. But like I say, this will be the Valve amp I will keep forever. And like I say, unless something drastically bad happens or it gets stolen, this is the Valve amp I do not want to lose because of the way it feels, because of the way it sounds. The connection I had with this amp immediately was special. It really was. And it was one of those things where I just can't ignore that. It's the same as the connection I had with the CR120. It's the same I had with the Marshall MGs, the Boss Katanas. You know, it's that kind of thing I have with this. And that's very rare for me with a Valve amplifier because normally I'm just kind of, well, I'm not edgy on them, but sometimes I'm just like, you know, nah. My oranges will do exactly what the amp I'm playing through will do or whatever. You know, with this one, it does that Plexi thing perfectly. And the only amps that can do that Plexi thing are Plexis, if that makes any sense. You know, I don't know if that's just waffle or silliness. I do apologise about my phone. But this is it. This is my one and only Valve amplifier, people of YouTube. I will try others, but it's going to take something very, very special to beat this thing because it's just perfect for me. I love it to bits. And like I say, I love the fact it's a fixed bias, which means I can replace the valves. It will be going every year for a service, though. That is the one thing it will be doing. Just to make sure everything's, you know, hunky-dory inside, kind of so to say. But I love it, you know. It's a real Plexi, you know. And again, been a spoiled little git, having played through loads of really old ones. I know what they feel like to me, and I know what I want from a Plexi, and this is it. You know, it's oh my god, it's just that. It's so amazing. So, people of the tube, I just thought I'd do a video because I get kind of a lot of people kind of saying, oh, you know, you need to get a Valve amp and this, that, and the other, and it's like, you know, I've always said that, you know, if the right one came along, I would get it. You know, I would. I don't hate Valve amps. I've done a video on that. I don't hate them. I just don't like the inconsistent nature of them. And this is no exception to that. This is inconsistent. It's a lot more stable than some Valve amplifiers that I've played through and owned in the past. But it's still inconsistent. You know, I can guarantee when I flick this thing off standby in a minute and play, it won't sound like it sounded earlier on. It'll be different. You know, and that to me gets on my nerves a little bit. But with an amp that sounds this good, no matter what I do, it always, like I say, it always sounds good. I'm willing to make that sacrifice. It certainly sounds better than my Marshall 50 watt Plexi did. That thing just sounded like a dog every time you turned it on. You know, there were times when it was okay, but looking back now, in all fairness, that was a really bad amp. This one is not. So, I love it to bits. I mean, I run it in a very, very strange way. People tube, when I'm running pedals into it, I'll let you know how I run it. So I go into the low impedance on channel 1. So I don't use the high impedance. I find that high impedance, I don't know. I just like the more, you get a bit more of a darker kind of tone and more headroom in low impedance because it's just a bit cleaner. So I only use that. I don't jumper the channels either. I just literally just use low impedance. I call it the Jimi Hendrix input because for some reason, every time I see Jimmy playing through one, if he's just playing for a singular Plexi, he's always in the low impedance. There are occasions where he's in the high, but he's already, you know, there are more times I've seen him coming out the low impedance than the high. So I always go into there. If I'm using pedals, if I go straight in, I'll probably jumper it and then come out the high impedance. But invariably, not really. I mean, this is more of a pedal platform amp for me, unless I want that kind of like, you know, that classic Marshall crunch, so to say, Plexi crunch. Anyway, so I always go into here if I'm using pedals. I don't use loudness 2, even though you get a thing called ghosting. If you do turn it up, it does make everything a bit fat, but I don't need it because I've got pedals. So loudness 2 is always off. The loudness 1 is my only volume, and I normally have that in this room. I'll probably have it at about, well, basically 1. So it's about 8 o'clock. I have that volume about 8 o'clock. If I get it in louder than, if it's any further up than that, it's just too loud. It's just far too loud. And I average, in this room, I average about 80 dB. So, you know, that's normally where that bat is. Treble, as usual, 0. No treble. Middle, again, 0. No middle. I have a bass on 2, so that's at 9 o'clock. Then I have presence at 11 o'clock, so at 4 on the dial. And the reason why is Marshall Plexi's presence to me just adds it's the right voice. It adds the right frequencies just to brighten the tone, not to kind of like get rid of the bass kind of like darkness of the amp. It's just that I like. It just brings up the clarity and adds cut, and that's why the presence always comes up and the mid stays down. I actually prefer presence to treble as well. In all fairness, if you can get rid of treble on every amp and put a presence dial on there, I'd be a happy bunny. So that's how I've got it set for my pedal board. If I go straight into the amp, it's it's whatever it is on that point in time. But honestly, if you're after a Plexi for just home use or recording or even small gigs, this will do small gigs. I have no doubt this thing will do small gigs, but just be aware of the headroom is very, very small. You don't get a great deal of headroom. Like I said, once you start getting this volume to about half 10, 11 o'clock, you're starting to get kind of edge of breakup, which is really nice. But anything above that, you're going to get into kind of like overdrive territory, and anything above that, you're into distortion territory. So just bear that in mind. Like I said, I've done that in the review anyway when I did the full review on this amp. But it's just amazing. I love it to bits. This, like I say, this is my one. This is a valve amplifier that I love deeply. You know what I mean? I have had valve amps in the past. I had an 800, JSM 800. I had the small box Plexi. I've still got the Pro Junior Fender. I won't have it for forever. I've still got it for now. I've still got the Ibanez Tube Screamer amp, although that is actually spoken for. My friend Nicole wants that, so whenever she makes it back over to England again, she's going to be taking that back with her, and that's it. But this one will be with me for forever. Fingers crossed. Yeah, touch wood, because I don't want to lose this. It really scratches that itch I've always had for that perfect Plexi, and this is it. You know what I mean? I just love it to bits. It's not an amp I would use every day. It's not an amp I would use probably every week. But would I ever get rid of it? Never. I just love it, and it's so amazing. Anyway, that's enough whiffle waffle, people of the tube. I think it's time for me to play through it for you. Like I say, it's just clean pedal platform, just perfect. And everything you run into these things just sounds so good. They just love pedals. Plexis just love pedals. And to me, I've tried Bassmans, and I know basically the Plexi is just a rip-off of the Bassman, but very different animal, the Plexi. They really are. And again, like I say, as soon as I saw one, I connected with it on a level that I do not understand. And I've always wanted that sound, and having played through so many, I'm like, I just need one. But I can't afford a 1968 Marshall Super Bass, but I can afford this. And luckily, my friend Nicole got a good one, and now it's mine, and I'm so happy. So, people of the tube, I just wanted to show you that, these things rule. They really do. And again, if you're after a Plexi on a budget as well, and the Studio Plexi is amazing. Absolutely amazing. I cannot recommend these things enough. They are absolutely stunning. They really are cool. I really want to try the mini JSM 800, although I'm not really a JSM 800 fan. I don't really like their sound. I just want to try it. I've tried the mini Jubilee. That's immense. The mini Jubilee is amazing. I really like that. But I would like to try the 800 just because. But I'm not, like I said, I'm not really an 800 fan, to be honest with you. But yeah, I love this amp. And I say, people tube, this is my one and only valve amp. If somebody said you can only have one valve amp, what would it be? That one right there. So I'm a very happy little bunny. So people tube, enough whiffle waffle. I'm going to play you out now on the Studio Plexi. Love it to bits. It smells lovely as well. It makes the room smell nice. There's something about Marshall, it's something about valves. When they smell very nice, I've got to say. The old ones, the old Marshalls they all smell the same, which is a bit weird. It's like old Gibsons and old Fenders. They've all got a specific smell about them. It's very strange. Oh God, he's talking about smells. Anyway, I'm going to shut up before I go totally off the rails and play some guitar and play some music for you. So I hope you're going to enjoy what I'm going to play for you now. By the way, it does have an effects loop. I'm not using it though. It's just out the circuit. That's another thing I really love. The fact you can turn it in and out of the circuit, so you can have the effects loop in the circuit or out. I always have it out. I don't like effects loops really. I don't really need to. I just don't. Well, it's not the fact I don't like them. I just don't use them. I like to keep things simple and just one path makes me happy. I don't like multiple paths. So, if that makes any sense. Anyway, shut up, Dave. Let's do some playing. Thank you very much, PvG. I hope you enjoyed this vid. I know it's a lot of talking, but hopefully it made some kind of sense. And like I say, I really recommend these things if you're after one of these if you're after a Plexi. They're just immense. And yeah, I'll see you again very soon for another vid. Have a great morning, afternoon, and good evening. And goodbye now. Thank you very much indeed for watching. See you later.